Looks like the grumblings are getting louder and louder at Oklahoma to the negative side for Brent Venables, as it seems like more and more people are saying that if Brent Venables goes 5-7 this year, especially if he tanks out and it looks really bad, that they may actually think about buying out Brent Venables and getting rid of him. I think there are some extenuating circumstances that we probably need to talk about, that we've talked about ad nauseum, but they still actually apply to me. You got people taking shots like Eli Drinkowitz, and then you have Oklahoma people trying to compare this to be even worse than John Blake. And I've done some investigating on that, and might not be as bad as you think. Let's talk about it.
Are you ready?
Here we come riding in once again. It's the Outlaw Posse now in effect. And today's 4 horsemen shout-outs go to Billy Townsend, Storm 4601, That Christian Fam channel. By the way, that's a great channel for religious talk. Check it out. And Shane Moore are saddled up and mounted up and ready to go and help us with today's college football invasion. Also, I can be found on Twitter, aka X, at OCF Productions. If you ever want to be on the show or give me an idea for a show, hit me up in DMs on X. Now, getting right to it here. Like I said in the lead up, there's been some grumblings going on and about possibly Brent Venables maybe gotten rid of this year. There is a huge buyout of about $44 million. I think it might come down a little bit after this year, but I'm not sure about that. Y'all could probably tell me more about that in the comment section, so drop a comment in there. Let me know about the buyout on Brent Venables. But there's, to me, a segment of the fan base is out there, my fan base included. You know, I'm an Alabama fan, but I love all of college football, that just say stuff and hope it sticks. And just it's like throwing dung against the wall and hoping it sticks. But sometimes people investigate stuff a little more, and they find out that it's absolutely not even close to being true. And the comparisons to John Blake and it being worse than John Blake years are very, very, I don't know what better way to say it, just it's a blatant lie. This situation with Brent Venables is nowhere near as bad as what John Blake did it at Oklahoma. And I don't want to hear no excuses for it, because y'all not willing to give Brent Venables any excuses. Although he has more excuses, he had more turmoil to deal with than John Blake did. Although John Blake did follow Gary Gibbs, who had done sort of a piss poor job too. But there were some extenuating circumstances with Gary Gibbs too, as you all know, as Oklahoma fans, if you know your history. When Switzer left, there was some probation lingering about that probably hurt Gary Gibbs, and to some degree, maybe even John Blake. But to say that Brent Venables is worse than John Blake is absolutely not true. I've done the investigating on it, and it's not even close. Brent Venables is 21-15. John Blake was 12-22. He didn't have not one winning season while he was there. Didn't go to one bowl the whole time he was at Oklahoma. So how can y'all say that Brent Venables is worse than John Blake and he needs to be fired? That's just you trying to get your way, being spoiled and being very impatient with the process here that Brent Venables has been having to go through, that a lot of coaches hadn't had to go through. When Brent Venables first took over, the only coaches that had to go through what Brent Venables did is the same coaches that got hired at their universities the same year that Brent Venables did. Nobody else has had to go through that but that class of coaches, which wasn't very many. He had to, like I said, ad nauseum. He had to deal with a former coach going to another university, a lateral move, so to speak, with USC, and basically raiding his roster. So he's having to re-recruit his players and try to keep them, and at the same time try to recruit new players, and he ended up having a top 10 class. This year, the reason why he slipped, and by the way, he went 6-7 that year and did go to a bowl game even after all that, then turned around and had a 10-win season last year. And this year, You're going into an entirely different league and landscape with all that luggage still pulling it. And not to mention all the injuries that Oklahoma's had this year. I hate to use injuries as an excuse because every team's going to get a few injuries throughout the year, and everybody has to deal with it in some form or fashion. But there is a time where it becomes such a massive thing that you can actually, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, use it as a reason as to why your team's not doing well. LSU, case in point, this week, they were banged up really bad against Alabama. You see what happened. Oklahoma's been banged up all year. Hasn't really had their full complement of players going into an entirely different new league. And then you'll have, like Florida, for example, who's in there down to their third-string quarterback, played Georgia tight up until their second-string quarterback got injured, and then they brought in their third-string quarterback and kept the game close, but still ended up losing to Georgia. Probably would have won that game had Lagway not got injured. And then they play Texas the next week with just a decimated squad and makes Texas look like world beaters. And that's another thing, that y'all try to compare yourself to Texas and how they're doing in their first year in the SEC. That's an unfair comparison because Steve Sarkisian had a chance to get his feet wet a lot longer than Brent Venables did. And Steve Sarkisian had already been a head coach. Brent Venables has never been a head coach. Now, I know it sounds like all these sounds like excuses for Brent Venables, but unless he just bottoms out and loses each one of these games by 60 points at the end of the year, I think you need to take all this into account and at least give this man at least another year or two to get this right. Then, of course, it doesn't help that you have old rivals taking shots at you through their coach that's never faced Bob Stoops. Former OU football coach, as you see here from the Oklahoman, Stoops responds to Eli Drinkowitz that says, "Keep following me." Basically, it says, when Bob Stoops was shown the video of Eli Drinkowitz post-game comments following Missouri's 30-23 win, all he could do was chuckle. "Someone showed it to me yesterday, and I started laughing," Stoops told the ref Monday. "I've been retired for 8 years, and I'm still prominent in people's minds." So, yeah, living rent-free, huh? The Tigers coach called Stoops out for remarks he made ahead of the season. Stoops told ESPN's Jake Trotter, "We beat the hell out of Missouri. All of a sudden now we're supposed to be afraid of them?" This will be real disappointing to Bob Stoops, Drinkowitz said post-game, but OU doesn't always whip Missouri's ass anymore. Well, Eli, like I said in a previous live stream, you're a bit delusional, man. You act like you don't really know college football history, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, asked him another question. He didn't even answer the question. He just come out and started blathering on about how Missouri's now in position to go to the playoffs. Y'all not going to the playoffs, man. I mean, by some miracle, if a bunch of teams just start losing, yeah, you probably could maybe make a case for the playoffs. But right now, you're not even close to being in the playoffs, man. Ranked 24th, probably shouldn't even be ranked, to be honest with you. Probably the worst 7-2 team out there. Y'all just happened to catch Oklahoma in a worse situation. You got more injuries than y'all do. So, this kind of stuff, these kind of comments can absolutely come back to haunt you, like, especially when it comes to a blue blood like Oklahoma, who's been known to overcome periods and droughts of not being as good because they're blue blood. And it's happened throughout history. If you read your history books, you'll go back and see that teams like Alabama, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, even USC to some degree, teams like that, man, they always re-arise and come back, and they're at least good enough to threaten to be a national contender. So I would really be careful about what I said, especially since Missouri does have to play Oklahoma next year in Norman, and by that time, Oklahoma have that great recruiting class, a couple of them great recruiting classes they already have already in tow, and they may not have as many injuries next year when they play y'all. So if I was you, I'd watch your mouth there, Eli. This one is also from the Oklahoman. OU football needs serious discussions after loss to Missouri. Social media reacts. It was a heartbreaking loss to the Sooners. It says here who watched quarterback Jackson Arnold fumble the ball with 30 seconds remaining. I still think we know with the issues with your offensive line and whatnot, maybe you should have played for the tie. Tigers defensive end Zion Young then scooped it up and returned 17 yards for game-winning touchdown. OU's now 5-5, is still searching for its sixth win of the season to become bowl eligible. The Sooners haven't failed to make a bowl game since 1998. John Blake. Here's how some of the people on social media reacted. Sooner Recruiting says Oklahoma football is in the worst position it has been during my lifetime. It's disgusting how bad we are. And this is a Twitter account that's supposedly in the know. And y'all don't know that John Blake was 10 times worse than Brent Venables. Stop comparing Brent Venables to John Blake. It's not even close, man. The people that are saying that and not doing the research, you make yourself look rather spastic. Skip Bayless, the ultimate retard, says Jackson Arnold, mistake maker, just fumbled away the game at Missouri and lost to a 5'9" backup quarterback. Dylan Gabriel wanted to finish his career at Oklahoma. Look at Dylan now. Do have to agree with Skip on that a little bit because, Dylan Gabriel, that might have been one of the mistakes that Brent Venables made, that maybe that he should have pursued Dylan Gabriel a little bit harder and maybe talked him into staying, irregardless of what Jackson Arnold and his father supposedly threatened to do. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's been said in some circles that they threatened to transfer out if Dylan Gabriel stayed another year. So I can agree with that. That was a mistake by Brent Venables, but we all make mistakes. Hindsight's 20/20. Everybody thought Jackson Arnold was going to be the next budding star, and he hasn't panned out as much, but he's had to deal with a lot of injuries, like I've said. Mike Stilley says, just really bad football. This game was right there to be won. Embarrassing for a program with the stature of Oklahoma. Serious discussions need to be had. Injuries or not, 5-7 with no bowl games should not happen at Oklahoma! Exclamation point. But it does, Mike. And guess who else went 5-7? Steve Sarkisian went 5-7 at Texas. I think his first or second year. I think it was his first year. And they missed a bowl. So it absolutely can happen at a blue blood program, although I wouldn't really classify Texas as a blue blood quite yet. They need to win probably a couple more national titles. But in the end and conclusion to this video, I think everybody just needs to calm down a little bit. I have been waffling myself here lately about whether Brent Venables is the solution long-term for Oklahoma. I will not try to come in here and preach to y'all about being patient and giving him more time, even though I've sort of already done that in a way. I can see both sides of it, but I still sort of lean to the side of giving one more year, even if he goes 5-7. Unless he loses these next two games by 60 points each, give him another season. Plus, give y'all a little hope. LSU is not as good as y'all think. Y'all could absolutely sneak up on LSU in that last game of the year, especially if they don't have nothing to fight for anymore. They tend to roll over, sort of like their fans did. They left in the middle of the third quarter, down 28-6. Yeah, they're down by 22, but I've seen plenty of teams score three touchdowns in a quarter plenty of times. And this is the middle of the third quarter, not the end of the third quarter. So LSU is looking worse for wear. They've got a ton of injuries right now, and I think Oklahoma could absolutely win that game at LSU. And I could be wrong. They could go down there and get blowed out by LSU. But I'm just saying, all is not lost, especially the way this season is played out. Alabama beats Georgia, turns around and loses to Vanderbilt. Really? Georgia thumps Texas in Texas, and then they turn around and lose to Ole Miss. Ole Miss loses to Kentucky. South Carolina beats Kentucky really bad, but then loses to Ole Miss really bad. So nothing's out of the realm. Alabama's playing Mercer this week. Alabama could come into that Oklahoma game looking ahead to whatever's in front of them and absolutely get surprised by Oklahoma. I know it sounds crazy, but a lot more crazier things have happened in the past. And I really think that y'all do have a chance to beat LSU. That's all I got to say about that. If you don't mind, there's a little heart down here if you want to make a one-time donation to the program. Even if I pissed you off today, smash that heart, throw a few dollars in the coffers. Also, like, share, comment, and subscribe. That's the big four, and all absolutely free. And you can join the Outlaw Posse. Get your random four horseman shout out like those guys did earlier. You get your badge, you'll get deputized. You'll be in the Outlaw Posse. You'll get a random four horseman shout out, as well as possibly be the comment of the day. With that, I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.